Hello, I'm Teresa Penbrooke, and I am a PhD student at North Carolina State University in the College of Natural Resources in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. I am also the CEO and founder of Greenplay, which is a national management consulting firm that works with parks, recreation, and open space agencies, and on the board of directors for CPRE, which is, RED stands for Research, Education, and Development for Health, Recreation, and Land Management Agencies. This topic today, Keys to Relevance in Parks and Recreation, is very near and dear to my heart. I am most interested in trying to help figure out how do we help our communities thrive. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are the relevant roles of parks and recreation in a community. A lot of us grow up with different ideas, especially in the United States, and some of us may have participated as we grew up. But this whole notion of what is quality of life? How do we fit into an overall system, especially as we're looking at a governmental or primarily a public system that provides these types of opportunities for our citizens. I'm going to cover a little bit about public health, public safety, transportation, economic impact, and then how do we fit in with the built and natural environment. Most of all, I want to talk about this whole piece of quality of life because I think in the United States this was actually part of our founding. The idea that in the Declaration of Independence we talked about the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And quality of life is really key to all of those things. So in our communities, think about who is providing quality of life. Who is managing that to help make sure that you have access or your family have access to the things that help make you happy? What do you do during your leisure time? Leisure does not necessarily mean free time. Leisure also means the freedom to experience things. So it may be not only the time that you have downtime, but also times that you can pursue your own educational pursuits, your arts, your sports, anything that helps you to recreate your body, mind, and spirit so that you can go back and do the productive things that we have to do, like make food, get food, sleep, go to work, all of those different things. So in quality of life, this balance of how do we put together our leisure time is primarily covered by Parks and Recreation. And we call it Parks and Recreation in the United States. Around the world, they call it different things. But what we're looking at is how do we have places to do those things? How do you have access to those things that are going to provide a good quality of life for you? Part of this is our role in public health. Now, a lot of times when people think of public health, they don't necessarily think of Parks and Recreation. They think of things like medical care. They think of things like having their individual constitution, what we were born with, genetics and things like that. And the reality is those things all come together. But in public parks and recreation, we play a strong role in helping to offer things that provide education, cognitive, social, physical activities. We don't have a whole lot to do with spiritual activities, although I might argue with that, because I think that being in nature for a lot of people is a spiritual activity. So thinking about where do you get your recreation of body, mind, and spirit, quite often those are offered by the public sector. Sometimes we say we don't play a huge role in nutrition, but if we're teaching kids in programs or after-school care or camps or things like that, we often are teaching them how to eat outside the home. And we can create policy that will help influence what the schools offer and what we offer in our own programs to teach kids how to be healthy. And we can also do things like community gardens and things like that. The living environment is a large piece of what we do. So having the management of the built and natural assets. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So we play a strong role. We should be partnering with the medical community and with the county public health systems and everybody else out there to make sure that the overall public health and wellness is provided for in each community. We know that the obesity epidemic is very strong in the United States, and part of this is because we are just so darn smart that we have engineered movement right out of our lives. We've made changes in the way that we live, work, and play, and so quite often, if you don't want to, you don't have to walk at all. And so the idea is the result has come from this because of our abundance of food in most places in the United States, not always the right food, but a lot of food available. We have an increase in chronic diseases, and so one of the roles that we can play in Parks and Recreation is to help address how people move through our environment and how we can help them with the unhealthy diets and the physical inactivity that tends to be just kind of a natural state for us as humans. We want to eat, we've been born to eat, and yet we also have to keep that movement in our lives or we become overweight or obese. One of the tools that's been developed, in large part by CPRE, but also with a variety of other partners, is called the Surveillance and Management Toolkit. And here at NC State, I am working with a variety of folks to help try and test this toolkit. Looking at parks and recreation as a public health system, how do we figure out which indicators and factors are most important in a system? So it's a systematic assessment of the various factors in any given community. And they are different in every community. So sometimes it has to do with where they can walk to, sometimes it's where the programs are available, sometimes it has to do with the fact that there's just not a bridge across a canal so the kids can't get across that area. So this toolkit has been developed as an alpha site in Bloomington, Indiana, with Indiana University, but we're now in testing around the country with a variety of other communities, and I would invite you, if you're interested in this at all, to contact us. We'd be happy to consider you as a beta test site or help you learn more about how the toolkit can be implemented in your community. Another area for us is public safety, and often when people think of the word public safety, they think of police and fire. And that's primarily true in most places, and people will support public safety, but I don't know that people always understand the relevance of parks and recreation offerings to public safety and how we can help reduce the costs and reduce the crime. One thing that happens is when you have a vacant lot or you have an area where we call non-sanctioned activities are happening, where people are doing bad things, whether it's drugs or gangs or anything like that, quite often it's because that space has not been fully activated. And one of the things that we can do is provide positive programming or a positive environment so that people are, the good people are there. Bad people don't want to be where good people are. And so by putting in programs into a park where there might have been a drug problem, we can start to activate that. We can help with things like graffiti and turn that into a positive outlet for art and expression. We can do a variety of things with swim lessons. All of our kids in the entire world need to know how to swim as a safety factor. And quite often that happens at the public parks and recreation pool. After reducing the crime after school, our police folks tell us that that's the highest time for crime in most communities because a lot of kids are on their own. And so the idea of what do they do? And can we provide a positive alternative for those kids who are not going to want to naturally choose the negative activity? Things like midnight basketball, keeping kids off the street and occupied and physically active rather than the other opportunities that they may have that are not quite so good. So we really are guardians of our youth, and in most communities we provide a lot of the after-school care, a lot of the programming, especially when parents, two parents are working or you may not have two parents in the home, that really help our kids be safe. And so I think sometimes that role in public safety is under-acknowledged, but it does provide a very strong benefit for most communities. The other element is transportation. Usually when we think of transportation, we think of roads and public works and streets and bridges and things like that. Sometimes we think of public transportation like buses and that system. Well, I would say that I think Parks and Recreation plays a key role in that. Most of the time, if you think about what you do for fun when you transport yourself, whether it's walking or biking or skateboarding or whatever that might be, you need a place to do it. And often those trails are provided by Parks and Recreation. And so we typically will recommend that Parks and Recreation work directly with the public safety folks or any of the transportation planning folks within a community to help make sure that that access is fully connected, that people have the ability to get wherever they want to be for any different type of activity and provide alternatives to the public transportation or having to drive, again, promoting movement. One of the initiatives that has been created by GPRED, primarily by Cindy Heath, who is our executive director, and you'll see her information at the bottom of the slide, is this idea of safe routes to play. So some of you may have heard of the Safe Routes to School National Initiative, where people are trying to get kids safely from their homes to schools, and that's been a very strong initiative from the federal level. This takes it one step further. How do we get kids from not only home to school, but also home to places where they can play, move, get out after school and on the weekends? And so there's a variety of steps and tools that are part of this Safe Routes to Play initiative. Again, if you'd like more information, you can either contact me or you can contact Cindy Heath directly, and we'd be happy to provide that for you. So if I'm a decision maker in a community, I'm the mayor, I'm a city council person, I'm a state legislator, I'm on Congress, how do I know what to do? And so the idea of organizational sustainability, good planning, and positioning, we have to have this information coming to us. And so part of our role in Parks and Recreation is to make sure that we are providing the right information to our decision makers. And so to be relevant, we have to think about what is that information that our decision makers need. And quite often, they are the ones controlling the funding, they're controlling what's available in our community, and their job is to really be the representative of the community, of the people. I keep using the word community, and I want to make sure it's important that the community can be anything. It can be a small town. It can be a special district in some states. It can be a county system. It could be a statewide system. So there's a whole variety. It could be a homeowner's or area. There's a whole variety of communities. And so one of the first things that we need to do is determine what community are we most concerned with and how do we gather that information.